globally accredited qualifications would place corporate leaders globally with global perspectives. A talking point connects with Mr. Venkkat, the Regional Vice President of Asia Region, AICPA and CIMA. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here.
Can you tell us about your role as the Regional Vice President for Asia Pacific at the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants and how you have been leading your team to support the growth and development of management accounting professionals in the region?
Think of a profession where we have 0.7 million members and students across 183 countries who work for more than 125,000 companies, and where they are working in public sector, the private sector. They're helping those organizations survive, succeed, adapt and thrive, which are helping economies move forward. And think about our role in supporting them. Think about how we have engagements and conversations, and importantly, seat at the table with governments, regulators, and key decision makers. Think about growing the profession at much larger stream with technology and the related impact. And think about a changing generation that are looking at the qualification and what career means to them differently than those who came before. Think about employers, and when they talk about the finance function and the changing needs of that finance function and how they need to be supported in that process, that's where we come into account. So our role in not just in Asia Pacific, but across the world as AICPA and CIMA, we lead the charge in terms of driving a profession forward, making it more dynamic, ensuring the relevancy of our members, but importantly, that they can make the changes for the businesses that they work for, whether it's in private and public sector, and thus help transform economies and support them. So that's how we envisage working with our teams to make change for the profession at large.
With your strategic storytelling and change management skills, how do you influence decision-making, drive business transformation, and empower teams to achieve their full potential in your role?
If you ask kids, they will tell you how they want to be inspired. I mean, every inspiration starts with a story. It sets the narrative, it sets the creativity, it sets the theme in terms of what needs to be done. But importantly, nothing works without people. People work for people, people work with people. And what is critical for them is the ability to see what they need to do. And storytelling is about connecting and joining the dots about what is it that we do, how do we do it, and importantly, the role that they play. So when we look at teams and empowering them, we start with them at the journey. Innovation doesn't happen by itself. Innovation doesn't happen because of technologies made enable. Innovation happens because people who are diverse, who have different thought processes come together and use technology as a tool to drive that innovation. So in the world we live, most aspects of what we do from a change management perspective, from a storytelling perspective, is to influence that impact with the people that we work with.
As a fellow chartered management accountant and chartered global management accountant, how do you leverage your expertise and commitment in the field of management accounting to drive meaningful change and innovation?
What I love about being a chartered global management accountant is just not about seeing the numbers. The beauty of being a chartered global management accountant is the very forward-looking person who helps drive businesses and its change. Now think about this for an example. Now think about a chief executive officer whose main intention is to grow the organization and to drive sustainability across the organization. So it's therefore a period of time in continuum. Think about the chief executive whose also role is to not only provide shareholder value, but social value, and to create shared value as a result. Who does he or she need? They need a set of people who can help them achieve that. Now that role of a CFO is exactly where we vision our chartered global management accountants to be. What they do is they're able to co-pilot, work with the CEO, look at the business and the business models that change as a result, understand what are the opportunities, what are the risks, because chief executives take incredible amount of risks in order to grow the organization, and importantly work in terms of how can resources be allocated and importantly prioritized to achieve what they want to achieve. Along that, CFOs and importantly chartered global management accountants have to kind of figure out what are the social issues that are prevalent at the moment, what are the regulatory changes and complexities that come as a result. Multiple substitutes enter into the market at any given time which transform business models of organizations. Think about different investors' requirements now that they're focusing more in terms of what is the ESG, especially on the governance, the social, and the environmental changes and impact organizations are making, and how is that embedded into the strategy? Guess who leads that function? It is the finance person who leads it, and importantly, the finance person who has the right skill sets. Now, when we talk about the skill sets, what are those specific skill sets that they have? Well, most finance and accounting professionals have what we call a deep technical skill sets, but that doesn't get them anywhere by itself alone. And the broader skill set in which they can have to understand what the businesses do and the changing nature of businesses, how do we work with people? How do we collaborate? How do we negotiate? How do we partner with people? To look at technology and its impact, and also look at leadership, bringing people along in the journey. And all of those combination together is what a chartered global management accountant does. So from my perspective as to who I am, is all of those embedded into me as going through my learning, my training, as I get the content, and I'm able to apply that into context in organizations we work with. And I loved it because it's about telling the story behind the numbers and not presenting the numbers. So from that perspective, we create inherent long-term impact and change.
You are also a certified master performance coach and NLP master coach. How do you use empathy, ethical business practices, and exceptional people skills to help others overcome personal and professional barriers in your leadership role?
So importantly, our understanding is that people are at the core of what we do. I mean, I have heard people calling it a technology first solution or a business first solution. No, it's a people first thing, right? And everything goes around that. You are as good as the people that you are surrounded with. That's for me is the essential part. And in order to understand the people that you work with, you have to drive change to yourself before you drive change to someone else. Imagine you're having a conversation with someone and someone comes and tells you, you got to make a change to yourself, when that person can point towards you and says, what about yourself? So neuro-linguistic programming and performance coach helps us to see ourselves inner, understand what environment in which we operate, and understand to make those very changes that we need in our lives in order to adapt and work with the people that we want to. Coaching is just a product of how can we guide someone to get where they want to instead of guiding to where they want to from our perspective. But importantly, for us and for myself, the critical thing is for us, for our teams and the people we work with, to see the true potential where they want to be and how successful can they become as a result. So part of it is to look at empathy, is to look at something from someone else's perspective and not your perspective. To create emotional intelligence, it's a big word when we use emotional intelligence. What does it mean? It means, can I connect with you? Would I be able to understand you? Would I be able to understand the environment in which you operate in? And would I be able to support you in that journey? So all of those learnings that we go through, which has to be continuous, helps us understand ourselves better to incorporate those changes. But importantly, do we give our teams and ourselves a wonderful environment to operate in order for us to be successful? That's why I see the importance of it.
Having completed executive education from INSAD and FinTech programs with Said School of Business, Oxford University, how do you incorporate your learning from these programs into your approach to authentic leadership, coaching, and driving meaningful change with organizations and with professionals who share these values?
So I qualified nearly about 20 years ago and became a member. Now, if I stopped at that journey there and says, I know everything, and 20 years later, if I walk around talking to people, I know everything, I've learned everything at that point, I have successfully failed. It just doesn't work. The criticality is that I need to continuously learn, unlearn, and relearn in order to not only remain relevant, but to be able to have a meaningful conversation with those around. So what caused change in me is that understanding that environment, that the more I don't know, the more curious I become about the world I surround with, I have to go through that journey in terms of the learning, unlearning, and relearning. So for example, the Oxford FinTech program, I'm not in the industry of banking and financial insurance services. But if I'm to lead a profession for AICPA and CIMA and have conversations with organizations of such nature where technology impacts them the most, having the ability to go through a program of learning, understanding the cause and effect of the changes, and being able to narrate those conversations with those stakeholders allow a certain level of trust to be formed. And I think that's critical. With INSEAD, the leadership program creates a wonderful networking opportunity, but again, it helps me further in terms of the journey. So the only ask that I have of professionals and leaders and those across, when you're looking at a long-term career and a change that you want to impact, always continuously think about, how do I enhance myself? Now, it's not from a typical South Asian mentality where you need to have multiple qualifications under your name, and sometimes you go through the content process but not the context process. It's about, even at age 47, you can put yourself on a learning journey and make a meaningful impact. So that's where I see the changes coming through.
Certainly, it's not all about numbers, but the age that you target in by getting about with complicated corporate issues with a journey with always with the learning process in mind. We were in a very insightful conversation with Mr. Venkkat, who happens to be the Regional Vice President of Asia region of AICPA and CIMA. Thank you so much for connecting.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Sabrina. Thank you for having me here.
Pleasure is ours. Thank you.